would love to hear something that you are grateful for. I love to start every week with that. Really, I like to start the mornings with that. It's actually something that Adam got me in the habit of doing a long time ago. So maybe something that you're grateful for, that you're looking forward to be grateful for this year, and or just something that you are grateful for in general. I am grateful for a fresh start. I always love the new year because I just like a fresh start. I like fresh, clean planner and all of my fresh new habits to get into. And so, yes, Pam, same thing. Yep, another new beginning. I love that. I think every year it's just good for a fresh, cleansing start. So, okay, you guys, what else are you grateful for? You got to be grateful for something. I know that you are. Oh, Amanda, hello. Yes, ready for a fresh new start. See, I figured a lot of people may have that as one of theirs today. It's such a good one. Okay, keep posting what you're grateful for in the chat. And then I would love to hear if you have chosen your word of the year. Type it in the chat. Mine is habits, and then my second word is manifest. And I don't usually choose a second word, but I struggled between both of those. But I actually was going to choose the word discipline, and actually Adam said to me, you know what Gary Keller says about disciplined people, right? And I said, I know I've heard it, but remind me. And he said, well, there's no such thing as a disciplined person. There's only people with great habits or bad habits. And so I changed my word from discipline to habits. So that's my word of the year. I love, consistency. That was mine in 2018. I love that word. Simplify, gratitude. Yes, love it. Mindset, Sam, love it. Love it, love it. Yep, time to focus on new priorities, totally. So if you haven't come up with your word of the year, I would highly encourage you to. Before we get started on our lesson from John Maxwell, I love to look at this. This was something that Linda McKissick, one of my mentors, shared with me. It's her coach, Dan Sullivan, who really gets the credit, but it's called the 4 C's. And I think at the beginning of the year, well, really, it's great to look at this anytime, but especially at the beginning of the year. And the main reason is because a lot of times I think that in order for us to make a big commitment to do something, we think that we have to have all the courage first. We have to have the confidence. We have to have all the credentials and the capability. And the reality is that a lot of times that's not how it works. It actually starts with the first C, which is commitment. And what that means is you have to go out and sometimes make a big commitment, and it can be a scary commitment. And Linda actually shares the story and says, making a big commitment, the difference between doing it with courage or fear, I think she says, is you should make a commitment that's big enough that it makes you want to pee your pants when you say it out loud. But having courage is actually going on ahead and fulfilling the commitment, even with wet pants. Not a great visual, but it gets the point across. And so sometimes you have to go with the first C, which is you go and make a big commitment. And then after you make that big commitment, then you kind of start to develop the courage to actually go through with it. And then after courage, you move to the third C, which is capability, or some people say credentials. So you've made the big commitment, then you get the courage, then you actually start to develop the credentials and the capabilities to do it. And then that leads to the fourth C, which is confidence. And that's when you get in such a great space because you feel good about what you're doing, and you're winning at that point, and you're achieving it at that point. And so a lot of times people think, oh, I got to have the confidence first. Really? No, you don't. If you just go make the big, scary commitment first, all the other things will come in place. And I like to think about the time that I kind of stepped a little bit away from actually day-to-day selling real estate. I had a team that was selling and still do, but I kind of stepped out of the showing buyers and showing listings to take an opportunity to be a team leader in a Keller Williams office, which is the person in charge of growth. And it had been years since I'd actually had like a boss or been an employee. And I had never led anybody really ever. And I sure as heck had never recruited, which was the number one kind of role of the number one big rock of the role, was to grow the office and to recruit. And I remember like praying about it, thinking about it. And some of you have heard that long story, and I won't go into it today. But I just went ahead, and I definitely did not have the courage. I had no capability or credentials, and I sure as heck did not have the confidence. And I didn't even know these 4 C's then. I wish I would have. But now that I look back on it, I just had to go make the big, scary commitment. And when I did, I then started to get the courage, and then I started to have the capabilities and then the confidence. And I have no clue, I guess, by the grace of God, I was the number one recruiter in our entire region for almost 3 years, well, really 3 years in a row. And so and that completely changed my life. So I think because it opened so many more doors. And so you just have to go take the first big commitment. The last thing I want to say about this is that there is a fifth C, and it's called complacency. And I think he kind of added that after the fact, but with complacency, it's like after you've made your big commitment, and then you get the courage and the capabilities and the confidence. If you don't go make another big commitment, then you're going to fall into complacency. And complacency is not really a great place to be because we stop growing, and we aren't stretched, right? And our minds aren't growing anymore, and we aren't going and making those big commitments. And even though they're scary, and sometimes complacency kind of feels like a comfort zone to us, the reality is, I love that like bumper sticker. Linda gives these magnets to everybody with those 2 circles, and it says your comfort zone, and then the dot outside is like where the magic happens. So you have to think about going and making another big commitment over and over and over in your life, no matter where you're at and what your age is or any of those things. Otherwise, you can fall victim to being complacent. So I just love this. I think it's great to start the year with it. What I wanted to share with you today was defining greatness, and John Maxwell just released this podcast. It's actually just part 1, so there will be a part 2. Hopefully if he gets it. I subscribe, so I usually get his like a day or 2 before they drop. I subscribe to his network, so hopefully I'll be able to share this part 2 next week. But I love this. So okay. John says, greatness, you're not born with it. It's determined by the choices that you make in your life. And I like starting this at the beginning of the year because a lot of us are rethinking about the choices that we're making, and the things that we want to do with the rest of our life, or maybe we're starting to wind down in life, or maybe we're really starting to ramp up in life, whatever that is. If you've ever heard John talk a lot, you've probably heard him talk about the difference between success and significance. This was a life-altering aha for me in probably 2019, but really started to sink in last year. And John's definition is success is kind of how well you've done for yourself. But when you're a person of significance, it's about how well you've done for yourself and for other people. So success is kind of about you, and significance is kind of about other people, if you look at it that way. And so what he says is with greatness, that's kind of how you move into living a life of significance. And so greatness is about how well you've inspired others to do well for themselves. How well you've inspired others to do well for themselves. And here's what he says. It's multi-generational, meaning if you really understand a life of significance and greatness and you live that way, then you pass that on to your kids, who then could pass it on to their kids and their kids. And so he says it transcends for years to come, and it can pass through. Now, some people who don't understand living a life of significance, then they may skip that in their generation, which is kind of sad to think about. So people of greatness, they think 3 ways. And the first way is they think possibilities. So people of greatness, they think about the possibilities that are before them. And here's what he says. And I just kind of took some of like the high parts of the notes. People of greatness think about all the possibilities before them. He used a quote from a guy named Brother Lawrence, which is like super, super, super back in the day. All things are possible to him who believes, and less difficult to him who hopes, easy to him who loves, and simple to those who do all 3. And so John says you have to think about, we were already created for greatness. And each of us, if we really think about it, and if we slow down enough, we should feel something inside of us that says we want to be great. And whatever that definition of greatness is, we have it inside of us. We just have to discover it and pull it out. And he talks about how what does he say? There it is. It's not overcrowded at the top, meaning a lot of people, they have the greatness inside of them, but they don't really take it to the top. They don't go after it, and they don't choose to think about the possibilities of what the greatness could show up. And he said that it's not crowded. It's not overly crowded at the top. There's mass traffic problems at the bottom. He said, think about the bottom as like Times Square on New Year's Eve, because you have a lot of people in your world that can help you navigate. But at the top, there's a lot of room, because not a lot of people will make it to the top. They won't do what it takes, I guess is the best way to say it. But he says there is room for every one of us at the top. And I truly believe that, no matter what the top is to you in your definition. It gives you options to think possibilities. So when you're a person that thinks about possibilities, you have more options than those who don't. John says they don't think that there are several ways to get to the top. They know that there are ways. And so a limited thinker may think, oh my gosh, there's only one way to the top, and I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to do that, or I'm not going to be able to achieve it. But a person who has greatness, who thinks possibilities, will think there's tons of ways to get to the top. I know that there are ways, I just have to do it. Thinking with possibilities gives you perseverance. And so a person who won't quit is a possibility thinker, because they're always thinking of different possibilities, different ways to do things, and what the options are. And also, it gives you creativity. And all creativity is birthed in imagination and what could happen and what may happen. Totally curious, like maybe just like shoot your hand up if you feel like you're a creative person. Like, do you have creativity inside you? Heather's hand did not go up. And which is crazy because I feel like you do. But yes, it's like always half and half. But really the reality is a lot of us may not say we're a creative person, but we do have some creativity inside of us. We just don't really think the possibilities of getting it out there. Oops, that's weird that popped up the wrong way. So the second thing people think is of greatness is they think a win-win. This is a huge thing to me. If you work with me on a frequent basis, you know, I'm all about a win-win. So a great person doesn't beat up on other people. And I just think that's really powerful. And if you've ever been around people who beat up on people all the time, not like physically beat up on people, but, you know, just with their words and stuff, it's just not fun to be around those type of people. Those that win, but everybody else comes in contact with them doesn't win, that's a person who doesn't think win-win. And those are not people of greatness. And I don't remember who said this quote, but I'm sure you've heard this. If you want to go quickly, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And so you really have to think about, if you want to be a person of greatness, you have to be people who think win-win all the time, meaning it might not be, you know, the best thing that could happen in regards to you, but it's still a win for you. And it's still a win for the other person that you're trying to do this with. I don't know if she's on, but Sarah that I work with has just had like the most hellacious real estate deal I think I've ever seen in probably 16 years. And it's like the deal it's like the deal from hell that never ends. We're going on like 8 months. It was a new build for any of you real estate people on here. Donna, actually, I think you signed something for it this morning. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. It is like it's the deal from hell. And so all along I keep saying, Sarah, let's just like, there's got to be a win-win. There has to be a win. And she's like, Dana, there is not a win-win in this deal. And so we keep like going back and forth about it. And really, there may not be a true win-win, but we're shooting for that. But people of greatness, they don't beat up on other people and make it all about them winning. They think win-win. The third thing they think is abundance. And so I had to really kind of listen when he said this, but John said, think about the ocean, think about the sea. And for some of you may feel this way. Linda and I actually just talked about this on our podcast. When I want to like really do planning or get in a good headspace, like the ocean is the place for me. For some people, it may be the mountains. For some people, it may be like snow or a lake. For me, it's the ocean. And I think it's just because I feel calm, even though it's like this massive, powerful thing, it just kind of calms me. But he said, think about it this way. Abundance is like the sea. Each wave carries another succession of waves, attesting to the fact that nature gives all but loses nothing. And that is really what greatness is about. It's the foundation of generosity. It's the catalyst to creativity. And you have to think abundantly in order to be able to do those things. And really, when I think of thinking of abundance, I just think the first person I always think of is John Maxwell. But I also think it's people who they aren't really like glass half empty or always glass half full. They just think abundance, whatever that looks like to them. So lastly, there's a couple of quick things. And he said, people of greatness prepare in 3 ways. So one of the things that John taught us last year is that he said that the 2 things that people really don't do that they should are they prepare on the front, they don't prepare enough on the front end, and they don't reflect on the back end. And to be really honest, I suck at both of those things. In all reality, I am not good at either one of those things. I'm getting better at preparing, but I think it's because I'm kind of a wing it person, and that's not the way to be, but naturally that's how I am. So I have to really work on it. And then for reflection, I'm really terrible at, because I'm just like on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So I started really thinking about and honestly, that's why habits, that's a huge reason why habits is my word of the year, because I want to get in I will get in the habit of preparing and reflecting, preparing and reflecting. So he says people of greatness prepare 3 ways. And they don't really rely on their giftedness to prepare. Like, raise your hand if you've ever just relied on your natural gifts to do something before. Hopefully I'm not the only one. John Wooden says when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. So the first way that great people prepare is they prepare continually, meaning I will wait for an opportunity and then wait for an opportunity, or I will get ready and then find the opportunity, because great people are already getting ready. And John gave the example. He said, I hear people come up to me when I speak in these conferences all the time, and they say, if I ever become a leader, I'm going to read one of your books. And he's like, but what I want to say is, why don't you go read all of my books and make yourself ready to and prepared to become a leader? Like, it's just a difference in mindset. And so he said, think about it this way. Champions don't become champions in the ring, right? They merely are recognized in the ring. Their becoming happens in their daily routine and in their habits, because they are preparing continually. The second way people prepare is visually. And this is a really big one. So because your expectations determine your preparation, you have to prepare visually. So if you think about this, he said, if you have expectations on a relationship or in a job or anything like that, you should know the number of preparations that you will do for that specific thing. What you visually anticipate will determine how you prepare. And that one kind of hit me, because he said how you see it will determine how you prepare. And if you see something, like he uses the example of planning an event. And for those of you that ever planned a big event before, you know, like, preparation is everything. And so he said, if you're going to have this huge big event and you're going to have, 10,000 people in a room, your list is going to be a mile long of all the things that you have to do to prepare, because you see the event as being this huge success. If you saw the event of being something that 10 people are going to show up at and they're going to have a mediocre time, then the list of things to do to prepare would not really be that big. So he said, do you see yourself in a picture of success visually? When you think of what you want to become and do, are you in the middle of that picture? So do you have the dream, but do you forget the most important part, which is putting yourself in that dream? And he says a lot of times we can become victim of that. So visualize not what is, but visualize what can be. Like, if you write anything down or take a note on anything, that's what I would do. That's what I would highlight. Visualize what can be, because you don't, what is already what's there. But when you're visualizing and you're manifesting, which is my other word of the year, you're thinking about what can be, and you're visualizing that into your life. He said the deposit you make in people, which is the preparation for them, has a direct return back to you. So if you lead other people in whatever role you are in, and every one of us leads somebody, the preparation that you have for them, it actually has a direct return back to you. And lastly, he said, people who say nothing great has ever happened to me usually have never visually seen themselves of greatness or visualize themselves successful. They have what some of us would call maybe that victim mindset. And he said he can always spot it. Anytime somebody says, I just feel like all these great things happen to other people, but nothing great's ever happened to me. And John says, I just look at them and say, well, have you ever visualized what something great is that can happen to you? The third thing, and this is the last thing, is people of greatness, they prepare realistically. And I've actually shared this, I think, before on here. I know I've talked about it on the podcast, but greatness has a sense of reality about it that gives it a foundation. And so here's what he says. The pessimist complains about the wins. The optimist expects it to change, but the realist adjusts the sails. That should say wins, W-I-N-D-S, sorry. So the realist is not really complaining, and they're not overly optimistic. They're just real about what's going to take to pivot and change and to make it happen. Great people are not pie in the sky people. I think probably we could always, all of us could think of somebody who's kind of a pie in the sky type person. But really, people of greatness are realist. They have realistic thinking. And that's something that they strive for. And so he talks a lot about, John Wooden was a huge mentor of John Maxwell. And he said that he read his book, I think it was just called Winning, if I'm thinking correctly, and that he gave 6 rules for successful leadership. And they were, number 1, control your destiny or someone else will. And John, I've heard him say this numerous times, John Maxwell, you're a fool if you give your future to someone else. And so he said, whether that's like you're trapped in a mindset of someone else has some sort of like control or power over you or whatever that looks like, that you need to control your destiny. Number two is face reality as it is, not as you wish it were. And a lot of people kind of, they face reality as if it's something that they wish that it were, but really reality is what it is. Number three, be candid with everyone. Number four, don't manage, lead. Number five, change before you have to. That's hard for a lot of us. And number six, if you don't have a competitive advantage, don't compete. And I think that's a really funny one. But he gave a quote that said, either you deal with the reality or you can be sure the reality will deal with you. And I just thought that that was so funny. And it's really a true one. And I sometimes think maybe people that don't deal with reality, maybe they don't have a high level of responsibility. I don't know. I'm not sure what it is. I think we all kind of float through different parts of our lives. But I would end with just asking you today, what can you do today to bring to focus on being a person of greatness, to begin to focus on being a person of greatness? So what's something today out of all the things that we talked about that you think, man, okay, I really need to be focusing on that so that I can continue to become a person of greatness? And I would just have you kind of think about that and maybe ponder on it a little bit. I haven't got to check the chat, so let me look really fast. Michelle, the path to the top is less traveled. Yep, so you have to do more to get there. Totally. Yeah, Jess, help others around me win. Yes, be more intentional, reflective. Yep, that's always mine too. I'm not taking off my bracelet, my intentional bracelet, until it falls apart, even though that was my 2020 word. Adam said, are you going to wear that thing till it rips to shreds? I said, I just might. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, so what's the one thing that you can do to focus on being more of a person of greatness? And I just, oh, hi, Dawn. I just saw you. Your curly hair is so cute. Okay, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for being on today. And share this with a friend so next week they can hop on too. Have a great day. Thanks, Monica. Hi, Troy.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you guys.